วัสดีค่ะต้อนรับคุณผู้ชมเข้าสู่รายการรวยหุ้นรวยลงทุนนะคะวันนี้กับปาล์มสินิดาเพชรเวรกุลและทีมงานค่ะและนี่คือช่วง Wealth Fitness กับ Philip Capital นะคะพาคุณผู้ชมไปติดตามมุมมองการลงทุนค่ะรวมถึงโอกาสและความเสี่ยงต่างๆและที่สำคัญนะคะการคัดเลือกสินทรัพย์ที่ดีที่สามารถสร้างผลตอบแทนได้ในระยะยาวนะคะหรือ Best in Class Investment Product วันนี้ค่ะได้รับเกียรตินะคะกับทางด้านของคุณปิยชัยชองค่ะกรรมการผู้จัดการของบลจ.ฟิลิปค่ะซึ่งต้องบอกคุณผู้ชมเลยนะคะว่าคุณปิยชัยนะคะท่านมีความรู้ประสบการณ์และความเชี่ยวชาญในเรื่องของการบริหารจัดการกองทุนต่างประเทศโดยเฉพาะเลยฉะนั้นวันนี้เราพูดคุยกันเป็นภาษาอังกฤษดีกว่านะคะสวัสดีค่ะคุณปิยชัยค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ
We've seen global market sell-off due to the COVID-19 crisis, and some people said it's actually a good time to buy certain assets at a lower price. However, is there any business or asset that we should avoid in the next few years?
Yeah, so I think there's no black and white answer to this. The most important thing for each investor to ask themselves is what is their level of risk appetite and what tools do they have to manage these risks, right?
Okay.
As we saw recently, I think the event that shocked everyone was how the negative pricing in the oil markets, right? So actually, this is not such a big surprise for if you've followed the commodities markets for a while. When I was in New York, advising hedge funds, basically negative pricing is not abnormal because it happens quite common in the electricity market, in electricity trading. So in the US and Canada, they trade electricity credits between states and countries. And so we've seen when a power plant has excess capacity and nowhere to send it, they actually pay other people to take this excess capacity. So to conclude on this, we have to know where our limitations are and adjust accordingly. Having said that, for the average investor, I think if you look at COVID-19 as an event risk, you will see that a simple rule of thumb that Philip Capital in Singapore uses is to be careful on what they call the beach, B-E-A-C-H, the Thai hat. So B is for bookings, tour operators, E for entertainment, so stadiums, concerts. A is for airlines. I think this is quite clear. C is for cruise and casino, and H is for hotels and accommodation. So there's a simple rule of thumb that these areas have a lot more exposure to the lockdown caused by COVID-19, especially when we don't know when that the whole world will open up, especially for international tourism and travel. So that's a simple rule of thumb. Having said that, it's very important to balance the macro, which what we saw earlier, with the micro as well.
Okay.
I'll give you an example, right? So we saw earlier how hotels have a risk in terms of occupancy because of COVID-19, but at the same time, one stock that I believe that is worth taking a look at is Marriott Hotel as an example, right? Because yes, they're suffering because of COVID-19, but there are two things that are working for that. If you look at a micro picture now, number one is a strategy integrating the Starwood collection, Meridian and W Hotels, with the Marriott group, the Renaissance, and all this as well. The second, and I think the most important point, is the quality of the management team executing the strategy. The CEO, the group CEO of Marriott, is an amazing man by the name of Arne Sorensen, and he actually had, unfortunately, pancreatic cancer. But even during treatment, after surgery, after chemotherapy, he had stage 2 pancreatic cancer, which is one of the most deadly forms of cancer. He came back. I did not take any pay for the next 2 years. No salary, no bonus. Even when he didn't have to, everyone knows that he's set for life, Right. But he came back because he believed that he can help his employees get out of the situation. So it's a balancing act between the macro and the micro. But as investors, we have to understand where our limitations are, both in terms of knowledge and in terms of risk appetite.
So now let's talk about the concept of this new normal.
Sure.
And also the mega trend where we investors can find some best in class investment product to invest in.
Yeah, that's a good question because these mega trends that we look at, actually it's selected not just because it's shown growth, but because we believe that over the long time it has stable prospects. And more importantly, if we look in the lens of the COVID-19 pandemic, COVID-19 actually not just disrupts this model, but actually accelerates the rate of change towards this new economy here, right?
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. Before COVID-19, one of the fastest growing internet applications is Instagram, right? Everyone's heard of Instagram.
Right.
It actually amassed a total of 100 million new monthly active users in a period of only 18 months, which is fantastic in the history of new application adoptions. However, now that we've seen with COVID-19, one of the fastest growing applications is actually a work from home application called Zoom. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. Now, we've heard how fast Instagram has grown. Let me ask you, how fast do you think Zoom has grown in about 3 months since the lockdown period? How many new active users do you think Zoom have accumulated?
Must be a lot of millions, maybe.
Yeah, 300 million. So in 3 months, they managed to do what Instagram took 18 months to do, right? So this just illustrates how this accelerates the whole change in not just consumer behavior, but also in business practices,
Right.
and equally importantly, in regulatory acceptance, right? If without COVID-19, certain changes might take a longer time because there's a regulatory process that every business has to go through. This has accelerated the process.
Okay, and you think consumer behavior like this and also regulatory will sustain not just this short period of time?
For us, for example, we actually personally decided not to invest directly in Zoom because we felt the valuation was a bit rich, it was expensive. The P is about 1,800, although we love the growth prospect. So instead, what we did was we took the opportunity to look at the whole value chain, right?
Right.
If we see this shift in workplace behavior and consumer behavior towards a more online presence, a more digital presence, right? Who would benefit the most? So from teleconferencing, we identified 2 bottlenecks in the value chain. The first, I believe, is the vulnerability that many people can attest to, which is cybersecurity, right? Every time there's a rapid change in behavior, especially due to external shock such as COVID-19, we do things a lot faster and sometimes a little bit more carelessly or not as careful as what we normally do. So as we see in recent news events, this creates vulnerabilities, and who would benefit the most? Cybersecurity companies, right? Because you have to invest in these to protect the integrity of your data and the privacy of not just your business leaders communicating, but also with the customers and other stakeholders in the value chain. The second area in the value chain which I identified is one of the limitations of video conferencing is latency, how fast and how reliable the video conferencing is, right? And the biggest driver to this is the data centers, the cloud computing, because then we need to store this data in order to render it, in order to have, especially in terms of high levels of latency communication, such as video conferencing in Zoom. So therefore, we decided, because we believe that this megatrend is here to stay for a long term, and what we saw in a rapidly changing world with this, we decided to increase our investment in cybersecurity and data centers and cloud computing for this.
So cybersecurity, data computing, like cloud.
Correct.
So that leads me to the next question. Your PWIN, your flagship fund, it actually benefits a lot from innovation and technology, even during the COVID-19 crisis and even its recent rebound. So can you tell us what's your strategy, what's your philosophy, and also the stock selection in your portfolio?
Sure. So for PWIN, we adopt both a strategic asset allocation, which means that we have still the 5 megatrends that we identified at the time of the IPO of the fund is still in place. It's in about 80% of the portfolio as a strategic asset allocation. So to recap, it is internet innovation, which falls under what we just spoke earlier, industrial innovation, driven by things like Tesla, autonomous vehicles. There's, of course, biotechnology, which we actually have increased our weight in this a lot in view of what happened with COVID-19, because they're at the cutting edge of healthcare technology, which benefits from COVID-19. And of course, cybersecurity that we just spoke about, and also video game and esports, because when people have time when they're at home, guess what they're doing?
Games.
Exactly.
Right. คุณผู้ชมคะนี่คือภาพสะท้อนที่ดีนะคะจากการคุยกันแป๊บเดียวกับผู้บริหารของบลจ.ฟิลิปนะคะเห็นภาพถึงกลยุทธ์นะคะในการบริหารจัดการกองนะคะที่มีประสิทธิภาพและที่สำคัญนะคะกลยุทธ์ในการคัดเลือกสินทรัพย์ที่ดีนะคะที่สามารถสร้างผลตอบแทนให้กับเราได้อย่างระยะยาวด้วยนะคะท่านไหนที่มีข้อสงสัยหรือคำถามเพิ่มเติมนะคะติดตามได้นะคะที่ Facebook Fanpage ของ Philip Capital Thailand เข้าไปกดไลค์กดแชร์หรือว่าติดตามรายการย้อนหลังได้ด้วยเช่นเดียวกันนะคะหรือว่าเข้าไปสอบถามที่หมายเลขโทรศัพท์ 026351718 ได้ด้วยเช่นเดียวกันค่ะวันนี้ต้องขอบคุณมากนะคะคุณเตียชัยค่ะ
ขอบคุณมากครับ
และนี่คือทั้งหมดนะคะของรวยหุ้นในช่วงนี้นะคะยังมีเรื่องราวที่น่าสนใจรออยู่เดี๋ยวติดตามพร้อมกันช่วงหน้าค่ะ